Hi, everybody out there in YouTube Lab. This is Ken Iverson in Kent, Washington, USA, near Seattle, Washington, USA, in the Great Pacific Northwest of the United States. Um, I want to talk to you tonight about my life, how it is here in the United States for me. I'm not talking for anybody else, but for myself, I live in public housing. It's government administered public housing. It's subsidized housing. My rent is 30% of my income. My income is $720 a month, less a utility allowance, so I pay $177 a month for my rent. And then I have utilities, and I have phone, and I have internet, and I have cable, and I have some other things too. And that's what I live on, $720 a month plus I have Medicaid, which takes care of all my medical. It's really a marvelous, marvelous insurance. I really love it. And they take care of all my prescriptions and my doctor's visits, my dentist visits. It's marvelous. Also, I have food stamps, about $100 in food stamps. So I have about $720 total income, and then I have $100 in food stamps, and I have Medicaid. So that takes care of me, my needs pretty well. If I have an emergency during the month, I just I just I just suck it up, and maybe I eat a lot of potatoes at the end of the month. That's just the way it goes. Not everyone is rich here in the United States, and I'm one of them who's not rich. I live in an apartment building called Mardi Gras. It's on Kent's East Hill, and it's there are about 70 of us who live here. 71 of us. There are one-bedroom apartments. There are 61 one-bedroom apartments at Mardi Gras, and there's a senior high-rise. We're all seniors, and we're all in this together. We live in one-bedroom apartments. Some are couples, but most of us are singles. And the vast majorities are Russians and Ukrainians, or from Belarus or Georgia or wherever. And so we live here in harmony. There's on my hallway, in my corridor, there's across the hall from me is a Russian couple, Alexei and Raisa. Then next to me is Trang Ly and Tam Tran, who are Vietnamese. He was in the Vietnamese military during the Vietnam War. He served 6 years in a concentration, they call it a re-education center in Ho Chi Minh City after the fall of Saigon. The government, when he got out, the U.S. government brought him to this country. Then next to Trang Ly is a couple, Anna and Victor. They're Russian, and they speak very little English. We communicate Russian. He speaks a little bit of German, and I know a few words in German, so we communicate that way. Sehr gut, sehr gut. Uh, and then on the hall, there's a woman her name's Joyce, and she is deaf. She can't hear, and she lives here, and she is on my hallway. Then next to them is a religious man who always tells me that Jesus loves me, and I tell him that Jesus loves him too. Then they have Mr. and Mrs. Redco across the hall, and then we have a recluse in apartment 210. I had never seen this guy. He's lived here maybe for a year, and I've never seen him. He keeps to himself. Then we have, let's see, then we have Michael and Lisa. They're darling, darling people. Michael is one of my favorite of the Ukrainians, and Lisa is too. They are just darling, darling people. And next to them, on the other side of the hallway, is Fatima Barut and Abdi Abdi. Fatima Barut and Abdi Abdi are from Somalia, and they don't speak any English. There's just a few words in English, and I didn't realize that they spoke Italian. I spent 6 months in Italy when I was in college, and so I I speak Italian. I speak a little bit of Italian. I've forgotten most of it, but I do speak Italian a little bit. And so we communicate in Italian. I say come stai, va bene, ho studiato a Firenze per 6 mesi, which means I studied at Florence for 6 months. And ho dimenticato quasi tutto, ho imparato la lingua. I have forgotten nearly all the language, all the Italian that I learned, and we communicate that way. My home health care worker, I'm disabled. The paramedics broke my back and they broke my shoulder 3.5 years ago when they took me out of my car. I had a condition called hyponatremia. There's too little sodium in my body. And I went to the emergency room at a place called Valley Medical, and they didn't even draw blood. If they had drawn blood, they would have found out that I had too little sodium in my body, and they would have given me an intravenous in the last 3.5 years of my life, which has been a nightmare, would never have happened if they had just drawn blood. I wrote to them afterwards, and I told them they should have done that. They should do that for everybody. They did not, and the next day I ended up passing out, and the medics came, and they dropped me. They tried to cover it up. They dropped me, and I was unconscious. But the secretary at the agency where I was at in the parking lot in my car, throwing up and vomiting, they came and she saw them drop me on the pavement. And sure enough, they did drop me because my shoulder was broken and my back was broken. And I spent 2 months in a wheelchair and couldn't walk. And I was in pain. And I met a doctor, what was his name? Dr. Becker, Virgil Becker. And that's an interesting story right there. Dr. Virgil Becker is... Wait a minute. Am I recording this now? I don't know that I am. I don't want to waste time if I'm... No, let's see. Let's see here. Let me go here. Yeah, I am recording. Okay, I'm back. I had to maximize my screen here to make sure I was recording. Anyway, Dr. Virgil Becker is a back surgeon. He treats people who have broken backs, and he treated me with giving me injections. He never did surgery. And Dr. Virgil Becker, God bless his soul, he went up to a place called Whidbey Island one weekend a couple summers ago, and on the way back he hitched a ride with a pilot from Auburn, which is where his office is, and the plane crashed on the way back, and he was killed, and the pilot was killed, and I believe her daughter also was killed. And I remember the last time I saw Dr. Becker, he said, "Can I do anything for you? Anything in addition to what I've done to you?" Done for you. And I said, "No, I don't think so, but if I ever need you, I'll give you a call." He was a good man. Anyway, I was telling you about living here at Mardi Gras. It's been cold this summer in Kent. At times it's been hot, but on other days it's been extremely cold. The temperature has been very cold. And in last July, about a month and a half ago, I was so cold one morning that I started to shiver. I started to shake. And Lucy, my home health care worker, put a blanket over me because I was shaking. I was cold. And that affects everybody in the building here. And I complained to the housing authority because they turned the boiler off, the central boiler, which gives off heat during the winter. But they turn it off during the summer, I guess to save money or whatever. And so they turned the boiler off, and so we didn't have access to heat when it was cold. And I complained about it. I complained about it last July. I called at least 2 times, maybe 3 times. Lucy called once on my behalf, and trying to get them to turn on the heat. And they did not turn on the heat. So anyway, it was yesterday morning. It was extremely cold again. And I called the emergency number for maintenance, and this was on Saturday. And I wanted to come out and turn the boiler on. That's all I wanted, just to turn the boiler on so we could get some heat so I'd quit shivering. And they said that they called me later in the day, and they said they could bring me space heaters for my apartment. And I turned them down. I said I didn't want space heaters because, they could catch on fire. If they got next to a blanket or paper or whatever, they could catch on fire. And I had a relative recently. His name was Eddie Bauer, of all things. Eddie Bauer died in a house fire in Renton. It was on the news here maybe a month and a half or so ago, and I didn't want that happening to me, so I turned down their suggestion that I have a space heater, and I also turned it down on principle because I'm not the only one who's cold here. They say that I'm the only one who complained. Well, that may be so, but as I said, there are Russians and Ukrainians who live here, and they're not liable to complain because in the Soviet Union, where they used to live, most of them are seniors. They go back to the time of the Soviets. They were not looked on favorably if they complained, and they do not complain. When I went down the hall last night and asked them if they were cold, I said "holodno," which is in Russian that means cold. And I asked them, "Were holodno, niet or da?" And they said "holodno, da." And sure enough, as I went down the hall, one of them said that they were not holodno. The others said they were, and we established that they were cold as well as I was. So they didn't speak up. One of the reasons being they don't speak English, and the other is they don't want to make waves. They don't want to lose their apartment. And I know that I'm not going to lose my apartment. I have right on my side in this instant. And I also talked to Fatima Barut and Abdi Abdi. They're from Somalia, and they're from Somalia, and they speak Italian. And I spent 6 months in Italy, in Florence, when I was in college. So I speak Italian. I speak a little bit of Italian. I've forgotten most of it, and we communicate in Somalia is a former Italian colony. When Africa was divided up, was partitioned in 1895, Somalia went to the Italians. Like England got some of the colonies, and France and Belgium and Germany and so on. So anyway, they speak Italian and we communicate. And last night they didn't understand what I was saying, so they called on the cell phone. They called their sons who were not at home. Finally, they got hold of a daughter, Abdi Abdi, and Fatima Barut got hold of a daughter, and she confirmed that they were also cold. So I reported this to Barb, who is the keykeeper here at Mardi Gras, and I'm not the only one who was cold. So anyway, I complained, and I'm understanding now that they're going to do something about it on Monday or Tuesday. Tomorrow is Monday. This is Sunday that I'm talking right now. This is Sunday, the August 29th, 2010. It's now Sunday evening. It's getting a little cold now. It's about 5 minutes after 10 Pacific Daylight Time in Kent, Washington, USA. And apparently they're going to have someone come out. I wanted them to come out this weekend because they had notice last July. They had notice that the boiler was not turned on. They knew it was not turned on. They knew that at least I was shivering, and I would imagine there were other people who were shivering and who weren't talking about it. We established that they weren't talking about it for reasons that I just went into. So anyway, if I sound angry, I am. I want heat in this building. We pay our rent for a reason, and if they can't do that, then I don't know what to say. I will put the word out to the housing authority for them to watch this video. I'll contact one of the members that I know and have them take a look at this video, and they can see for themselves my story. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I am Ken Iverson in Kent, Washington, USA. We're almost coming up to the end of this 15-minute segment, and I want to get this processed and into the video library that I have here so that anybody can watch this in any part of the world. You can watch it in Hungary, you can watch it in Afghanistan or Mecca or in Iraq or wherever. I want you to watch this. I want you to know what it's like to live here. Not everybody's rich, in the U.S., and I'm certainly one who is not rich. And we have our problems too. I know it may not seem like that. $720 sounds like a lot of money to some people, but believe me, it isn't in the U.S. It's very little money. So